Guten Abend. Herzlich willkommen bei Hanover Global Network, wo Wahrheit unwissenschaftlich uneingeschränkt herrschen. Welcome to Hanover Global Network, where truth and accountability reign supreme. Stick around. Tonight will be pretty interesting. Durch den Einsatz von Mascots kannst du die ahnungslosen Massen tauschen. Through the use of mascots, the unsuspecting masses can be deceived. In this life, nothing is ever as it seems. And especially in the annals of politics, deception is generally at play. But there are some people who go above and beyond, even in politics, to deceive the people who have entrusted them to lead them. And one of their most deceptive weapons is the use of mascots. Through mascots, they can pretend to you to be who exactly they're not. We find ourselves in a very fortunate situation to have the leader of an administration who takes pleasure in his use of mascots. Now, this is not an accident. This is a deliberate action of a charlatan. Anytime you see you have extensive overuse of mascots, you know you have a charlatan on your hand. Now, charlatans are pretty good at making emotional association. And what do I mean? They know what you react to emotionally. For example, the Grenadian people, obviously, many of them have an affinity and get very emotional when you talk about Marge Bishop. Then there's a sector of the population who likes that doctrine of back to Africa and making some sort of association with Africa, the motherland, and Grenada. Then, of course, based on the history of the country, you have those who believe that they are more Che Guevara than Che Guevara. And if you didn't know, you might have believed that Lenin was born in Grenada. So to all these different sectors and people in the population, if you want to dupe them, you can put on mascots of each of these individuals. And that is exactly what the leader of the current administration has figured out. So he doesn't believe in anything that he's saying. And how do I know that? People don't just get up one day and believe in things, okay? You will have to look at their action, their history. Now, if someone said to me that Ali Gill was interested in a Back to Africa movement, or Ali Gill is interested in this whole reconnection of the motherland and Grenada, I more than likely will believe them. And I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the gentleman's history, from time immemorial, even when we sat on benches in IFE, the gentleman always would dress up in his African garb, and he will always be interested in things of an African nature. So if this gentleman comes and says, I believe in trying to make some sort of reconnection with the motherland, I would believe him. But it's interesting. The current leader of the administration, for all the mascots that he put on, he has never in his past life or prior to getting into politics represented even remotely any of those things. But the gentleman gets into politics and all of a sudden he's a Che Guevara-like character when he needs to interact with socialist Marxist country in the region. Then when he needs to rile up the Grenadian masses who have an affinity and a love and some psychological emotional attachment to Marge Bishop, he pretends to be a Marge Bishop-like character. And of course, if he wants to appeal to Grenadians who are Afrocentric and are thinking about the motherland, he pretends to be some sort of African king or some sort of Afrocentric person. And it works pretty well because you see, he would go to places in Africa and he would play the part. He'll dress up in the garb. And what he doesn't realize, for the people who dress him in the garb, they know he's not one of them. But it's a sort of humiliation ritual. It's like, dress him up like one of us, kind of make fun of him. And he does not realize that. What you do with kids, especially, little kids, babies and stuff like that. You go above and beyond and you dress them in elaborate costumes that represent adults. But in truth and in fact, they're only babies. And that is exactly what is being done to him when he goes to Africa. It's a humiliation ritual. Dress him up like one of them, as if to say, what you come here with is really not good enough for us. Yeah, here's something. Put this on to look like us. And what ends up happening is that you tend to look awkward in the gab because other people's gab never fits you the way your gab will fit you. And if you truly want to know what people are really like, you need to observe what they do, their actions, not what they say or what they pretend to be. So the gentleman comes and he pretends to be some so interested in agriculture and agro-industries. Yeah, we're really interested. But then when you see what the gentleman and his crew does in the agro-industry, then you know they're not really interested in agro-industry. As I have said, there's not enough money that's attractive enough for them to make in agriculture or agro-industries. It's not enough money for them. The money is in Polaris and the money is in selling passports. That directly provides jobs for them because that is where they can use the machinations of government to self-enrich. That is where, if they wanted to, they can use public money to engage in private enterprise. That's where the money's at. And one very good thing charlatans are good at, they don't let you realize where their source of income is from. They'll have you believe it's some sort of magical economic engagement of theirs that they're enriching the country, but that is not true. Their enrichment and their money comes from you. It comes from you, the Grenadian taxpayer. You're the one that is enriching them. You're the ones that are collectively filling the coffers so they can write the checks. It's a sad situation. It's your money that you're putting into the coffers, but you're not writing the checks. You have no control over the money after you've put it in the coffers. They get to do whatever they want with it. And in our case, if you're as fortunate as we are to have a charlatan at the hem, then as the saying goes, dog eat your supper. Especially the charlatan who does not like dribbling or having a little bit trickle down to the regular man. That is a dangerous charlatan. Because the charlatan says there's no poor and vulnerable. He don't care about you. Go find a job. While they use the machinations of government to create economy and create jobs for themselves, they're telling you, go find a job. That's how brazen these charlatans are. See, they create jobs. In this Polaris, they create jobs for their own people. They have what? The sponsor. Why don't you guys ask them, how much is a sponsor being paid for being the sponsor? In addition to the deals the sponsor may be getting as part of the whole thing. How much is the sponsor being paid for being the sponsor? How much is Mr. Dolan being paid? So they've created economy and jobs for themselves. But have to catch your ass to try to find a job. They ain't creating jobs for you. Because creating jobs for you involves real politics, involves real management, involves real work of a politician. That's too much hard work. They don't have time for that. They didn't come into government for that. That's not the aim. What do you thought they came in to help you out? They all came in to help themselves. That is why the gentleman manages and controls, I won't say manage, but controls every aspect of this charlatanistic government. That is why. You know why? because he's afraid that his lieutenants, his ministers and others, he's afraid that they're going to slip up and speak the truth. That is what he's afraid of. That is why he controls every aspect, everything. Why do you think he made sure that Minister Telesford was not present at the town hall? He's afraid that he screws up and then he ends up telling you the truth. So he has to control the narrative. That's what it is. And of course, you'll see they'll publicly display the trappings of luxury and wealth. Because why? That is to dangle that in front of you to have you believe by their prowess, by their ability, by their doing, that they're enriching themselves and Grenada. But it's done off of your backs. You don't realize the money is coming from you, the Grenadian taxpayer. They're creating jobs for themselves. They have a whole industry for themselves, not for you. The agriculture industry, they don't want to be bothered with that. Look what they did up in Diamond Estates. Talking about youth in agriculture, all this talk. You ever notice also the gentleman has an answer for everything? That, again, is a mark of a charlatan. Listen, we grew up in a place where we could spot hustlers from a mile away. You should be very cautious of someone that has an answer for everything. You know, some of us will say, well, I'm not too sure, but I'll look into it, I'll check it. But this gentleman, because he has an answer for everything. Because why? He's telling you what you want to hear. That is the masterpiece of a charlatan. Tell you what you want to hear. Notice they have no real policy. As the NDC, what is the policy platform of the NDC? They have none. Nothing solid. It's all vague. Again, that is deliberate. That is strategies of a charlatan. They don't give you anything solid. They don't give you anything substantial. They make it all vague. So then you cannot hold them to anything. You can't say, oh, well, you promised you'll do this. You can't hold them to anything because they have no policy. It's all vague. They emphasize emotion rather than intellect. That's what it is. That's why all their followers are so emotional. You create a kind of cultic-like following. That's the acts of charlatans. They don't want to appeal to your intelligence or your intellect. They want to appeal to your emotion. And that is why they create spectacles. Groundbreaking. It's a spectacle. So while you're distracted by the spectacle, they are laughing all the way to the bank. And you, public money, you're providing the public money. You are the financiers. Yeah. You didn't realize, right? Yeah. You are the financiers. Because if they were getting so much external money, you would see being reflected in Grenada. You would see it being reflected in money trickling down to the regular poor and vulnerable masses. But it's not. So the money is coming from you, the taxpayer, where they're using the machinations of government to enrich themselves. That is the whole scheme. Real politicians, it takes hard work. It's not easy work. Real politicians to build an economy, everybody knows it's no joke. This is serious business. But they're not interested in that. They're not interested in putting in that real work. So of course, with all this mascots and all these great spectacles, that is how they intoxicate you. That is how they get you drunk. And the thing about it, that sort of drunkenness is even more dangerous than liquor. Ask those kids, those young kids from 1979 to 83, who was drunk on socialist Marxist doctrine. Ask them. They got them to do whatever they wanted them to do. Ask them. Look what they got them to do. They got them to turn on each other and in some respects, eat each other alive. On doctrine, on ideology. Another masterful plot of the charlatans is to pit the masses against each other, to create a sort of us against them. It works magic. The us against them. That is why you see there's such serious vitriol by the followers. It's us against them, yeah. And of course, they villainize Dr. Keith Mitchell. Yeah, he's the effigy. Okay, yeah. That's the effigy right there. And it's us against them. And the us, they're not getting anything. The us just want to be part of something. Because, a lot of the times human beings have an innate need to believe in something. So they are providing the vague doctrine. There is no real doctrine. That's the whole point. But you feel that you're part of something. That's what it is. That's what it is. I know it seems like, how could I get entrapped by this? How could I have allowed myself to be entrapped and play it like that? It's hard to accept it. And the problem is that when you're in it, it's like that sort of, I got to stay in it. I've already created enemies. I've already created us against them. So I got to stay in it because I don't want to be alone. It's serious business. But it takes vigilance and soberness to understand what is happening to you. As I told you, ask those guys from 79 to 83. 4.5 years. How the heck did they get so indoctrinated that they were able to turn on each other with such ferocity? And it's interesting. For all that I've been saying about all this stuff, I was talking to a friend recently, in Grenada, and he said to me, he said, boy, initially when you were talking about how the climate in Grenada now is reminiscent of the early 80s and 70s, he said, I couldn't make the connection. I thought you were exaggerating. But then they said, boy, you were spot on. You were spot on. And that is what I keep telling you guys, that if you don't understand or see some of the things that I'm saying now, a lot of them have started to reveal themselves. But you will surely see what I'm talking about. So the question is, for all this CBI money, for all this trips to Africa, for all this sale of passports, billions of dollars, show me one investment in Grenada that's CBI related. That's all. Where's the proof? So now you should understand that this program is set up in such a way to enrich those who are part of the program. It's not for you. Where's the benefit? Where's the money? Show me the money. Show me the investment that will provide jobs for Grenadians. Where it is. At least the previous administration said, we have these structures in place. We have this that occurred. But where? Billions of dollars in CBI. Where's the money? Where's the investment for Grenadians? Can't see it. There's nothing. There's nothing tangible that you can point to. But as I have said, that whole CBI is to create an economy for themselves, to self-enrich. The Polaris is another economy for themselves. There's no economy for you. No, that's for them. So we heard all the much to do about the Lackalome Agro-Processing Center, and it was supposed to be ready by, April or whatever. It should have been ready already. And I have came up with some videos in the past to show you the condition it was in. And apparently they might have seen the video. So guess what? They decided to do a little bit of flat work around the property. Concrete driveway, concrete drains. So they did a little bit of flat work. But generally, flat work is the thing you leave for last. But luckily, we have some excellent footage of the inside of the building. So the reason they did all that outside flat work is to make sure they come and they dangle this in front of your face. So you look and say, oh, wow, look at the flat work. Nice concrete. But when you see what is happening inside that building, you will be disgusted. Because I don't know how they're going to do agro-processing in that building. Even if you fix it up, they better make sure that there's no mold in that building. So here it is. Take a look at what the inside of that building, at what should have been the Lackalome agro-processing plant is like. Take a look at it. Now, I hope you're not having dinner. So as you can see here, if these are the people that continue to hold the reins, your agriculture industry or any industry, local industry, will turn into a wasteland. Just like this wasteland here, okay? All while they will drink champagne, celebrate their enrichment, and look at your demise. And the socialist Marxists who have infiltrated the NDC and who stand on the sidelines will stand shoulder to shoulder with all their comrades and try once again to spring an ideology on the youth of Grenada, to captivate and deceive the young minds of Grenada. In some respects, that will be an awesome triumph for them. That is the aim. Never forget who you're dealing with, especially lepers that don't change their skin. So while they're turning you and in some respects stab you in the back after you helped them out and brought them to power, let's drink to that. While they demolish your houses, let's drink to that. But don't feel bad for yourselves. That is what they did to Adrian Persuader. He brought them into the party. He is the one you should blame. And from the look of things, Andy looks like he's on a chopping block. Don't you see? He gave him the dirty job to do. It's quite reminiscent of when Biden knew that the border was in a horrible mess. Who did he give the dirty job? Kamala. So there it is. He's giving Andy the dirty job because he know he's going to find a way in the future to blame Andy for all the things that happen. And then Andy can become the fall guy. It's part of the game. I mean, after all, Andy seems to have become a liability. He has too much baggage. And the way elections run now these days and campaigns run, and the way Jenny has something dangling over their head, I believe it's going to be dropped around campaign time. So just in case, Andy may be the fall guy. Now, the best way to end this off is with a nice little display of mascots and the Grenadian people in a stadium applauding their own deception. Now, here's the mascots.